Hello my beautiful friends, welcome to Soil Sazón. I'm Josephina and today we're starting my Cooking Through Mexico, the cookbook series. So to start the series, I decided, since I have the most glorious brand of Masa harina that I have ever had, I'm gonna start everything off with a Masa series. And so to start the Masa series, I'm making some Tlacoyos. We are going to get started by preparing the beans because this recipe calls for 2 cups of cooked beans. I don't keep cooked beans in the house. That is something I would like to keep in the future. But since I don't have it, we are going to start off by moving over here to my lovely Instapot. The sun is shining really hard in here. Generally 1 cup of dry equals 3 cooked, and I only need 2, so I'll take out what I need from here. So I'm gonna put these in my Instapot. I call it an Instapot. I know it's instant pot, but my brain just kind of does it that way. Anyways, let me get you guys closer so you can get out of the sun. I'm gonna add in 3 garlic cloves. Normally I do 2, but because these are like on the really small side, I'm just gonna do 3. 1/4 of an onion and maybe like half a tablespoon of salt. I don't want to over season these. And 1 bay leaf. I put enough water just to cover the beans, maybe like 2 inches over the beans worth of water in there. So now with all of those ingredients, I'm gonna put it in and I'm gonna cook it on my lowest bean setting, 25 minutes. And now, while those are working, because I have to wait for this to come up to pressure and then for them to cook, I am going to prep the meat that's gonna go on top. So while the beans are getting started, I'm gonna explain to you guys what Tlacoyos are. I'm gonna show you guys an up close view of the actual picture in the book. But they are essentially a really thick tortilla that is stuffed inside. You can have them plain, but generally they get stuffed inside. You can do different things like cheese, chorizo. You can do some meat that you've cooked up and you've got left over, as long as it's like, you know, not like super saucy and wet. You can fill that in the middle. Or you can do what I'm gonna do today, the way this recipe calls. I'm gonna do with beans. So this particular recipe actually called for black beans, and I thought I had enough. That's all I have, just that little bit. So I went with pinto beans today. So these beans are gonna become a paste, and those are gonna get filled inside, and then they're going to get shaped into that beautiful little oval shape and cooked. And then on top of that, I'm gonna put some grilled steak, and I'm gonna get some cilantro from the garden, and I'm also gonna make salsa verde. I'll link that down in the description box so you can add it on top. So now that we have the beans going, I'm gonna take this flank steak and I'm going to slice it up, slice up the onions, and make the garlic kind of mixture that is gonna go inside with it. And I forgot an ingredient, which is the lime, so I'm gonna go grab that from the fridge. So normally when I am cutting things, I will do the vegetables first and then the proteins that I'm using. But because all of this is going together, I'm not really concerned with what goes first. So I'm gonna take out this flank steak. This is about 2 pounds of flank steak, and I'm gonna give this a nice chop. You're gonna wanna cut these to whatever size is best for a bite that you're taking. So as you're cutting it, think, can I eat this whole thing and not feel like I'm gonna choke? So these are gonna go on top of the tlacoyos. Okay, I'm gonna show you guys pieces that I have. They're this big, so it would be a nice bite. And because this is a flank steak, I don't like to cook it very long, and it stays nice and tender, and when you bite into it, it just kind of easily pulls apart, which is great. I've got 1 3/4 small onions. I use that 1/4 piece to go into the beans, so I'm just gonna slice these up. The slices will just kind of depend on how you're gonna want it when you're eating it. I usually like to just do a slit in half and then make slices from there. And I don't like them super thin, but I don't want them super thick either. I sliced my lime. Somebody's gonna judge me. I don't care. I'm gonna need this in a second. I'm just gonna stick it right in here and move that to the side so I can take this away and get to work on the garlic. All right, my hands are washed. And now I'm gonna get my mortar and pestle. You don't have to go the mortar and pestle route with this. You can do it in a blender, but I will tell you, I've done it in a blender and I've done it like crushing it on the board and doing like a whole like super fine mince, kind of make it like a little puree. And both of them taste great, but my most favorite way of doing it has been this one. I keep them as contained into this little bowl, and on top of that, the flavor of it, it just, I don't know, it's just different. I can't really explain it, but it is. I've got 12 garlic cloves right here. I'm gonna add in peppercorns, and I'm gonna make it into a paste that I then will add into this. So let me grab my peppercorns. That's 2 teaspoons in there. Crushing these first is gonna help these to not slip and slide around while I'm crushing them. This is gonna give it like a nice little grip at the bottom. So I put my hand over it and keep the pestle in here and then just kind of lightly pound it. I'm keeping my hand over it because if I do that, I'm gonna have them jumping out and everywhere and not staying in here. I've gotten to this place right here. If you really like thick bites of peppercorn, you can leave it like this. I want mine a little bit more finely ground, so now that I've gotten them broken up and they're not in their whole form, now I can start doing the little washing machine motion. Okay, and there it is. I'm gonna add in half of the garlic cloves. Same thing, hand over it, because with this, juice will be splashing everywhere. Okay, when I have those flattened, these are not how I want them. This just leaves me space to add the others. So now I have it into the consistency I want. You can see there's still chunks of it, but for the most part, it's nice and mushy. It's like a nice paste. That took me less than 5 minutes. So now, got my lemon squeezer. Actually, I need to scrape this off first. And I'm going to take half of my lime. And this is just to help me make it easier to get it out of here. Now this goes into the bag. And with the other half of that lime, I'm gonna squeeze it into this. This is empty now, but this is just to help get out whatever yummy, garlic, juicy, peppery bits are left in there. So I'm gonna give this a stir. Try to scrape around to get whatever might be left in there. And that gets added. Last thing I want to add to that is some salt. That's going to be up to you, how much you want to do. Same with the garlic. Honestly, if you guys think that 12 cloves of garlic for 2 pounds is far too much, then put it in whatever you want. But I'm going to be honest with you, it's delicious and you're missing out if you're not willing to do 12. But I get it. If you're afraid of over seasoning, then you can be like me and only add in a little bit now. And then when you go to cook it, you can check to see the sound if you need more. So now I'm gonna squeeze out as much air as I can. I've closed the bag and I'm going to massage all of this together. Pay attention because look, clump of garlic. You can miss that real quick. I just tuck it in there, give it a mix, and aggressively tell it where to go. Get her in there! After all that, I realized I was missing something. Some avocado oil. I'm gonna add in a couple tablespoons. And now, You can see everything is well incorporated now. This is just gonna hang out right there until I'm ready to use it. And because I'm using it in under 2 hours, I'm just gonna leave it on the counter because it'll absorb the flavor a lot quicker. If I put it in the fridge, the meat tenses up and then it's not, that marinade doesn't get to go in there as well as it would have if I had it right here where the meat is nice and relaxed. So real quick to show you guys, just because this part of my kitchen is clean, don't mean this part's clean. Look at piles of laundry, I got stuff all over the counter. Don't let me fool you with my clean corner. So I've got the beans going. I've got the meat marinating right there in the bag. The next thing I can do while I wait for these lovely beans to finish is this calls for 4 1/3 cups of masa dough. So the great thing about this book is that it asks you for the masa dough and then tells you on page 36 is where you can find that. So I'm gonna move on to making the masa. This book is not specific on how much water you're supposed to use for masa. The general rule is equal amounts masa harina to water, but don't add it in all at once. I'm gonna be adding it in, like, I'm gonna do like the first 3 cups, mix that in, and then add from there. 4 cups of this. And I'm going with white instead of the blue that they used in the picture because I want you guys to be able to see the difference of the white contrasting with the brown of the beans. If they were black beans and they would have really popped, but here we are, I wasn't prepared. I have 4 cups. You don't have to do this part. This part is not called for. This is like a debate. I like to add just a little bit of salt in mine. Do like a teaspoon of salt in here. To some people that's like, oh my god, you don't need salt in there. That's fine, but I'm a salty girl. So I'm just gonna mix it in. Guys, if you've ever smelled Masa or tasted Masa, which is like the typical brand of masa harina that you'll find, that's the one that I've used before in a previous video. The smell is so much more fresh, like, it smells like fresh masa, like in Mexico. Even the feel of it, obviously I can't feel it all that well with gloves on right now, but when you do feel it, it's got like a softer velvetiness to it than like Masa does. Okay. I'm over here fangirling about this. I love Masienda, like I'm so impressed. Okay, moving on. I'm not just gonna add this in room temperature cold. I'm actually gonna pop it in the microwave for a little while to warm it up. Warm enough that I can handle the touch of it, because then the masa harina itself will absorb the water so much better and you'll get a softer, puffier tortilla texture. All right, my water's done. I did all 4 cups for about 1.5 minutes. Now I'm gonna pour in. I'm gonna stop at 3 cups. Oh man, I thought I was recording. All right, so I started off by doing this whole thing right here, which I'm doing right now. You grab a fistful and you squeeze, and it helps you to break apart any clumps that are in here as you're going through. I added in the 3 cups, but then once those 3 cups were incorporated, I still saw a bunch of masa harina super dry down at the bottom. So I went ahead and added in the whole next cup. You can do half a cup at a time if you are not familiar to this process and you don't want to overdo the water. Just do a little bit at a time. So I'm taking from the side, scooping it, bringing it in, squeezing and pushing at the same time. Again, you scoop under, flop it over, and squeeze while you push down. All right, I ended up adding in that extra 1/3 cup that it called for. So for me, it was 4 3/4 cup with 4 cups of hot water. And I needed it for about 10-11 minutes. So it's done, because when I slap it, it doesn't stick to my hand. And it feels like soft Play-Doh. And then when I do rolling it into a bowl and I squish it, if the edges stay together and it doesn't crack, that's how I know it has enough water. Okay, so with that done, I've got a damp towel and I'm gonna cover it and I'm gonna let that sit for 10 minutes. All right, voiceover me here. So now I'm moving on to adding in the beans. The recipe does say to add in some broth if you're struggling to get it to puree. I did not add any, I just went in and straight up added hot beans. I think that helped with getting it to a nice pasty consistency. So I've got those in, and I'm gonna be honest with you guys, my review at the end was definitely honest, but the next time I go to make these, I think these need more flavor. Just chipotle peppers in it, which I'm adding here. I'm doing 2 instead of the 3 the recipe called for because I didn't want it to overpower the flavor of the beans. But the flavor was really simple. It was just literally just bean chipotle flavor. Next time I want to do things like add a little bit more salt, add some pepper, add garlic powder, some thyme, maybe some oregano, just to kind of give those beans a little bit more of an oomph, because this was just a nice simple flavor, which I know is good for some people, but for me, I like a little bit more complexity in the things that I eat. So this is what it looks like when it's completely pureed. You can see how thick that is, and I'm showing you right here. This is not going to go into the freezer so it can cool until I'm ready to use it. So next thing I'm going to do is in a cast iron skillet set to high heat, I'm going to put in that meat and spread it out as much as I can into a single layer and let that cook until it is completely seared and brown. Moving over to the tlacoyos, I'm taking a dough ball that's about 2 golf balls worth of dough is what the book says. And there's 2 methods of doing it. So the first one is the way I'm doing it here, where you do it in a tortilla press. I flatten the dough ball and then I rotate it completely to get the other side because it can be slightly uneven. It says to get it about 1/4 of an inch thick. Once you've got that, then you'll place the beans in the middle and then you'll fold one side down and press it in. Then you'll go to the opposite side and fold that down. And then you'll start with the ends, where you'll take one of the corners and fold it over. And then we will go to the other corner and fold that over on top of that. And then we're gonna do the same thing on the other side. And now I'm tucking up the corners to fully seal it. And then I'm gonna put the plastic over top of it and press down to get all of that dough together, and just continue to use my hands to flatten it and shape it to that oval shape that I'm looking for with an even thickness as much as possible. Then I'm gonna take it, peels right into my hand out of the plastic, and put it on a comal. If you don't have a comal, you can use any dry skillet. I have it set to medium heat, just a little bit under medium. For the second method, you just roll it into a little log, and then using your fingers, you'll make some indents in there to get a nice little canoe shape that you can then fit your beans into. And I'm just kind of pressing it in there and tucking it in. And then once I've got it in there, I'm pinching the sides over top of it and the bottoms to seal it. It is okay if some of the beans are out. It's not a big deal. I'm gonna put that seam side down and then put the plastic over top, and just the same as the other one, I'm gonna use my hand to flatten it to an even thickness and get the shape that I want. With the beans showing on the other side, it actually worked out well for me because I made some with cheese and some with these beans, and so I can easily tell the difference just by seeing that little bit of bean that's sticking out. And again, I am rolling out that dough into a log shape, and then using my thumb and my first finger, I'm just kind of going in and making a little indent so it's like a canoe. Then I'm taking a little portion of beans and stuffing it in there, just kind of like manipulating it, pushing down the beans, folding the dough over top and the ends, flipping it seam side down, and then with my hand shaping it to the way that I want. And here is the finished meat. The tlacoyos themselves were cooked 5 minutes on each side. That's what the book called for, and it worked just great. So 10 minutes total cook time for each one. And here is the finished product. I'm gonna show you guys what that looks like on the inside. In the picture, it shows some like nopales and onions and cheese on top. It also recommends that you do avocado. My avocados were hard as rocks, so we're just going with this yummy garlic lime flank steak, some sliced onions, some minced up cilantro, and that roasted tomatillo salsa that I made, which again, I will link that video down in the description box if you want to make it too. And then to top it all off, some sheep's milk feta. It is complete. Look at how glorious and beautiful that is. I wish you guys could smell my kitchen right now. Oh, take a bite. I was gonna use a fork, but who am I kidding? Eating with your hands is better. Oh my god. Oh my god. If you look inside, you can see the layer with the beans in the middle. When you bite into it, you get the instant taste of like that tortilla, and then the creaminess of the beans, and it's got that chipotle, so it's got that nice smoky taste in it. And then you add that meat. Guys, that meat, it is so good with this because the citrusiness of it balances out that like smoky earthiness of the like corn and the beans. Oh my god. And I put salsa verde on top, which again, I will link that down in the description box so you can see that video. And then I added the feta on there so you get that salty bite, and it's sheep's milk feta so I can have it. Oh my god, this is so good. If you guys love tacos, if you guys have had sopes, things like that, this is just another glorious version and another way to make those same things. That is it for today's Cooking Through Mexico, the cookbook video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, I hope that you're willing to hit that subscribe button and stick around with me for a while on my journey to becoming a homesteader and teaching you how to make Mexican food from scratch. I'll see you in the next one.